with you. Flip a doujin in the bed, I'm reading manga till it's two. Tell me that you love us if I go, I'm knowing that it's true. Cause you acting all moe and vanilla in my view. So this is for them waifus, straight 2D flex in my life, fool. If you fuck with hentai, you my dude. Let the beat right out, keep it nice and smooth, yo.
Hey everyone, welcome to the weeabooze, the anime podcast where we get drunk and talk about anime. I'm Kyle, and tonight I am drinking Deschutes fresh squeezed IPA. Deschutes is always pretty good, pretty much a standard, but no Hunter tonight. He is still with his girlfriend, enjoying his time with her. With that being said, let's just jump right into it. From junior high through college, if I wasn't watching anime, I found myself in a constant state of striving to watch anime. I studied as hard as I did throughout school so I could envelop myself in Japanese cartoons by the end of the day. Even now, I'm able to work from 8 to 5 at a barely tolerable, yet respectable job because there's comfort in knowing I can abandon all my concerns when I go home to indulge in this foreign, intangible media. Reality can be boring, painful, stressful. Life is difficult and can be filled with negativity and sadness, which is why there are so many means of escape. We all deal with hardships in our own way. We play video games, we drink, exercise, play music, but for me, my escape has always been anime. I won't say anime saved me from anything. I mean, Evangelion helped me cope with depression back in the day, but it was rare that I ever experienced some sort of tragedy and was pulled from the depths of desolation by simply being able to relate to a story or character. In fact, for me, it's almost the opposite. Anime is my escape in the sense that it often manages to detach me entirely from reality with its insane worlds and completely ridiculous concepts. When I saw Kanti birthed from Naota's forehead for the first time, I distinctly remember my jaw dropping in a mix of disgust, amazement, and confusion. I was in complete and total awe. There's anime about fight clubs for bento boxes, gaining power through breast milk, and I will never get over the fact that we have an anime consisting of nothing but girls fighting with their booty. Anime can be bizarre. Animated fiction is possibly the furthest you can get from reality, so why not go all out? Give me something as abstract as possible, like Kaiba or Dead Leaves. Distract my conscious mind, let it rest, and allow my subconscious to carry that weight for a while. Like, bury me in absurdity and let me find the meaning, because I know the meaning is there. No matter how seemingly incomprehensible something appears, it has a purpose. And that's why anime is such a fantastic form of escapism. It's so often that I feel so utterly lost and don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life. But being able to find or create meaning of the absurd sets me at ease and makes me feel like my worries aren't so complex. Although I may find solace in the most insane anime because I find that it helps dissociate myself with reality, that's not to say it's the only quality that gives me comfort. Especially considering the majority of anime can be pretty weird. There are Iyashikei slice of life type shows like Mushishi or Natsume, which, while thoroughly entertaining, are so peaceful that they could and have put me to sleep at times. Like, there are anime with moe magical cute girls doing cute things, which is happiness personified. And of course, we have our shonen to help relieve stress by mindlessly watching people brutally punch each other in the face. Anime is built to make us feel good. You see, escapism itself is totally natural. It's simply something we engage in to relieve stress. However, the downside is that it often leads to addiction, and I'm willing to bet most avid anime fans are truly addicted to the medium, myself included. Anime has this sort of mirror of Erised quality. In Harry Potter, there's this mirror that when you look into it, you'll see what you desire most. And people have wasted away just staring into this unobtainable fantasy. With anime, many people get so immersed in these fictional worlds that their perception of reality becomes warped and they almost forget all social norms. To a certain degree, it's understandable. Anime is weird and niche in comparison to Western cartoons. So people who are impressionable and embrace these foreign tendencies are bound to stand out. That's where the concept of chunibyo originates from. But in regards to escapism, I initially gravitated towards and found my escape in anime for how weird and niche it was. But subconsciously, I think I was finding comfort in the fact that there was a constant in my life. It's normal to experience a feeling of unwarranted loneliness, especially during your teenage years when most people first discover anime. And the act of watching anime filled that void for me. It wasn't so much that I was placing myself in the character's shoes, but I was growing up with them, learning about myself. I've experienced so much thanks to anime. The ideals and outlooks I have on art, music, and writing are a result of constantly flooding my mind with anything I could get my hands on, from obscure 80s OVAs to hilariously graphic hentai. Anime may be fiction, but the impact it had on me as an individual and how it made me feel is proof of its power to make an impact on reality. When I come home after a stressful day at work, maybe I should say when I rush home after any day at work, I start watching anime, and I honestly feel like I can finally breathe for the first time that day. When I'm watching anime, I almost feel a sense of nostalgia for the present moment. There's nothing wrong with taking a break from life every once in a while. It's during those moments that you can truly learn about yourself. Sometimes while watching an anime, you can be reminded of who you are or even who you want to be. Watching anime is a way for us to leave our own mindset and view an entirely different world from an entirely new perspective. In life, things don't always work out. There's no cat-eared maid waiting for you to rest your head on her lap. We won't ever bump into a cute schoolgirl running to class with bread in her mouth. And we won't know what it's like to be the center of a harem where clothes seem to miraculously fly off every female. But it's nice to know those worlds exist and are waiting for you at home. So, before we move on, I thought I would leave you guys with 5 recommendations of conceptually outrageous anime that are not just weird for the sake of being weird, but are actually really good, and I'll try to exclude the extremely popular examples of anime that I already referenced, like Fooly Cooly, Keijo, Jojo, or Monogatari. So, the first is Arakawa. Aside from Fooly Cooly, Arakawa Under the Bridge is probably the best example of a conceptually bizarre anime that is handled extremely well. Arakawa is about an incredibly successful businessman named Ko, later referred to as Rick, who is obsessed with the idea of never being indebted to anyone. So obviously, in episode 1, he almost drowns and is saved by a beautiful girl living under a bridge. Because Rick insists on paying her back, she asks for him to be her lover. He agrees and starts living under this bridge with this girl Nino, who claims to be an alien, only to soon find out that this riverbank under the bridge is occupied by many other eccentric people. The mayor is a kappa, but it's painfully obvious it's just a guy in a rubber suit. There's Hoshi, a washed-up musician who has a star for a head for some reason, a huge male gun-toting nun, a bird-headed Yakuza man. But regardless of all this insanity, at times it's a legitimately touching series that teaches a lot of meaningful lessons. Then, number 2, I would say, is Saint Young Men. Saint Young Men is a movie, and I think there are a few OVAs as well, about Jesus and Buddha going on a vacation to Japan. They live together in a tiny apartment, go to the public pool, take a trip to Disneyland, and just have a good time. It's an easygoing slice-of-life comedy movie. And when religious figures appear in Western media, it's always the same. Like Jesus will say, "Oh my God," and everyone will laugh because he said the thing. It's so funny. But in Saint Young Men, you can tell the author put a lot of time into doing research about both Jesus and Buddha, because the comedy is super creative and ties into the unique personality traits they gave each of the gods. Jesus is this happy-go-lucky guy who will laugh and accidentally turn water into wine or have his crown of thorns bloom into roses, while Buddha is really into screen printing and likes to make t-shirts for himself and Jesus. Number 3 is Prison School. I'm sure most of you know that Prison School is one of my favorite anime. It's about this group of boys. They're the first males to enter into a previously all-girls school. They get caught peeping on girls in the bath and are sent to a prison that happens to exist in the middle of campus. For various reasons, they have to break out. Hilarity ensues. It sounds pretty normal until you realize everything is way beyond your typical fan service. Characters are put in these heart-pounding, sexually awkward moments that actually have consequences. In most anime, a guy will trip and touch a boob and get slapped, but in Prison School, a guy falls out of a tree and gets pissed on by one of the prison guards. And that even develops into its own mini-arc that has a much greater effect on the series as a whole. Number 4 is Dead Leaves. I hesitated to include Dead Leaves on this list. It's definitely the craziest anime on this list, but it's been such a long time since I've last seen it that I can't quite remember if it's actually good. But I figured, at the very least, even compared to modern anime, it's among the most visually bizarre anime out there. I'm not going to bother trying to explain the synopsis of this one, but it's sort of like Panty and Stocking meets Sex and Violence at Mach Speed, if you've heard of that. The last one is Mysterious Girlfriend X. So it's actually a bit more tame compared to the other ones that I mentioned, but I admit I like this anime more than most people. This one's a bit more of a guilty pleasure. Boy falls in love with girl falls asleep on desk, girl drools on desk, boy licks drool. This drool apparently has some captivating quality to it that makes our protagonist addicted. Once a day he needs his drool fix, so the boy and girl, Akira and Urabe, develop this raunchy, taboo relationship. I may go into this idea later, but I feel like the idea of, what's the best way to phrase it, not desensitizing, but like restricting sexuality to one very specific thing, making a game out of the concept behind lust, is really intriguing. There's a manga called Nozoki Ana, where a boy and a girl have an agreement to mutually peep on each other through a hole in their wall. Nazo no Kanojo sort of reminds me of that. So there are 5 random anime recommendations. Go check them out if you haven't seen them, especially the first 3. With that being said, let's move on to questions. This week's question comes from, I'm terrible at pronouncing these usernames, Osterschalen. They ask, have you watched any anime and thought it could be more effective in another medium? How about the opposite? Have you seen another work, live action, movie, TV, etc., and thought it could be better in anime form? Okay, so typically, I think a piece of work is most suited for the medium it was created for. There are a handful of anime I think would be pretty popular as a live-action Netflix series, like Monster, for example, but I don't think it would necessarily be more effective. I think Monster is most effective as a manga, but the anime popularized it. Netflix could do the same, and sometimes we need that. Even if Monster is perfect as a manga, if the vast majority of Americans or non-Japanese don't read manga, it needs to be displayed in a different medium. This argument could be made with the live-action Ghost in the Shell, but I'd argue Ghost in the Shell didn't need to be popularized. In fact, part of the reason it supposedly failed is because Ghost in the Shell is already so popular. and like it's dear to people's hearts. In regards to the second part of your question, have I seen a live action series or movie and thought it would make a good anime? I can't really think of a story being enhanced by the medium, although I say an adaptation will always lose something when changing mediums, but I actually wonder if some manga and light novels are made with the intention to eventually become an anime, because light novels are already essentially scripts, right? I'm not completely sure, but regardless, thank you so much for the question. With that being said, let's move on to what I've been watching after I drink some more. Of all things, I think Sekisuru Kado stood out to me most this week. To those of you who don't remember, this is the anime about the alien who comes to Earth and offers humans infinite energy. The first arc, if you want to call it that, was all about that primary conflict and the chaos that that results from this seemingly good thing. It brings up the question if humans are ready for this sort of monumental transition. But as soon as that question is approaching a resolution, the alien turns to the main human character who he's been working with and asks him, "When's the last time you slept?" And as the main character is starting to realize the fact that he hasn't slept in several weeks, the alien reveals that he is now going to offer humanity the ability to evolve past the need of sleeping. The show isn't perfect, and I think it suffers from some pacing problems, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Like, it's really interesting. It's just, I think I mentioned before, the information is not conveyed in the most interesting way. Then is Uchoten Kazoku. For as much as I love the series, including season 1, I don't think I've ever been able to really place my finger on the exact reason I find it so appealing. It's a beautiful show, and I can understand how well composed it is, but I don't always understand the reasoning behind some of the events. I don't always understand the cultural nuance of the show, and just sort of mindlessly accept things, which I don't like to do. Like, I don't know. I'm curious to know if anyone listening has similar issues with the show. Let me know. Everything I watch, I enjoy, and it's so beautiful and whimsical, like I said in like previous episodes. But I do get lost. I do get lost in the intricate details of the show. Attack on Titan. After the mess of last week's episode, Attack on Titan definitely redeemed itself this week by doing what it does best and gave us an entire episode dedicated to Titan fights. More than anything, I loved the very last moment, like right as the colossal Titan was about to fall on the two Titan boys, we get a hard cut to black, like this abrupt ending. Like those sort of endings, I love that sort of stuff. Boku no Hero, it was hype. Our shonen boy overcame mind control boy and saw some freaky shadow, one for all people. Ice boy got a little too angry at elbow tape boy. So many boy fights. Renai Bokun had a surprisingly sweet episode. I don't care what any of you say. I may forget this anime by next season, but I'm enjoying it now, and that's all that matters. So, those are really the main anime I have things to talk about this week. Let's see. That's everything I had to say this week. Let me wrap up, and then I will talk to you guys a little bit more in the chat. So, if you have any questions, suggestions for episode topics, please don't hesitate to send us as many as you'd like. You can send them to myself at Secret Otaku on Tumblr, send us an email at theweeabooze@gmail.com, or just leave a comment wherever you're listening. And join us on Twitch most Fridays for when we live stream the podcast, and join us on Discord so you can talk to us whenever you'd like. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon, leaving us an iTunes review if you like what we do. And more than anything, please share the podcast because word of mouth is pretty much the only way we get new listeners. I want to thank Hentai Dude for our intro music and Kuagato for our outro music. And like always, get drunk in anime. I'll see you guys next week. I'll see you guys next week. This is when I'm getting tipsy.
You can catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. so high like I'm ho-wo in that tower, take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot, that's kamikaze, sacred fire, don't be mad, I'm lit. Cash for smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm ho-wo in that tower, take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot, that's kamikaze, sacred fire, don't be mad, I'm lit.